Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Smith. I'm the editor of PHC News Magazine, and I'm joined today by Bill Gray, the CEO of Uponor. And we're going to talk a little bit about the company, a little about labor practices, I guess, within the manufacturing sphere, and also this very interesting, I don't know if you noticed this one, but it's more than just a prop. We're going to talk about this too. But Bill, let's start by talking about, where's Uponor now? What do you see happening in the year ahead?
Well, 2020, I think it's starting out fairly interesting. I think everybody's relatively excited about the market and the opportunities. Just finishing up the International Builder Show a couple weeks ago, and builders are very buoyant about demand and their businesses. So good earnings for a lot of them last year. So continued. I think since my time, probably the phrase that we start every year with is cautious optimism. We're maybe a little bit more on the cautious, but still very optimistic.
Okay. In the builder show, those are more home builders,
Residential, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about commercial?
And multifamily.
Okay.
So they kind of span over a little bit.
Sure.
So there is some crossover with the AHR show.
Okay.
A lot of the same attendees. A lot of them are working kind of both sides of that. But it is primarily where it's combined with KBIZ, you see a little bit more residential focused.
We'll talk about this in a second, but any other new products? I know, because I think you're at the CES show as well. I pulled a press release about Finn. What's new and exciting about that?
Finn has continued to exceed expectations on where that product's going to go and where the industry's going to go. I recall back in 2016 when we announced that joint venture, there's really only one or two companies looking at that space. Now there's more. You can count them on more than two hands now. The companies. So it's really very much in the formation stage. There's competing technologies, all kinds of stuff. Everybody's looking kind of with the vision still of protecting property and then conserving the resource. And I think that's where it's going to go. It's really going to probably end up with who's aligned with whom around home automation. That's a big kind of an unknown now. Channels to market is another challenge in that industry. There's the devices that are kind of easier DIY to install, and then there's devices that are more complex where you actually have to cut plumbing systems. So there's regulatory changes in the sense of municipalities starting to want water saving, water conservation devices, and then on the other side, insurance companies wanting to protect their installed base. So offering incentives to home builders and all those, or homeowners and those sorts of things. So there's a lot going on there, a lot. So it's early days, kind of the Wild West days in some ways. So a lot of that stuff still. So for on the Finn side though, a couple of new exciting products. One is a builder version, contractor version of the Finn Plus, and then we're also looking at larger diameters for larger homes or homes which may have fairly extensive irrigation systems. Eventually, where we see that going to go is into the commercial space. So think multifamily, high-rise, and those hotels and those kinds of things. That's where we want to take that.
Okay. And I know you make a special effort to train contractors to install this. Is there anything new about that that's been going on since I last
Uponor
talked?
Pro Squad is how we originally started the launch for Finn, and we envisioned a nationwide network of service plumbers out building a market, in their territories for that product. Hasn't quite materialized that way. One is plumbers are very busy, so adding new lines to what they do has proven to be a bit of a challenge. And it's probably one of those, a little bit of a snowball. Once the thing starts rolling, then guys are going to get online and really start driving it. But it's such early days. So we've had to find other channels to market as well. Probably the majority of those products, our Pro Squad has done a fine job. But the majority of those are what we call BYOP, so bring your own plumber. In other words, you go pick it up at some distributor, whether it's a Best Buy or a Costco or whatever, then you take it home and then you work with your established plumber. All this is going to help build, as I say, that snowball.
All right. But you're pretty happy with the state of affairs.
Very excited about Finn. Again, our industry, it's the digitalization of a plumbing system in some way. What the device does is only, to me, half of the ultimate picture of what's happening here. data acquisition is going to be huge. Data acquisition will play into future design.
Yeah.
If you think about designing municipal systems, how do people really use water versus how do we think they use water? I mean, now we still design on the Hunter curve, which was 1940s or something like that, right? And when we had 6-gallon toilets and fixture units, and that's our industry has been slow to adapt.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, the Hunter curve probably a little outdated.
I think there's been some efforts occasionally to try to renew that.
Yeah.
But in the absence of data, it's the best.
Right.
It's the best that we've got.
It's the best we have.
And I think the principles are still valid. It's the actual data and the numbers that needs
things change.
Yeah.
Since that was instituted. I mean,
and there's a lot more sensitivity around water as a resource than there was in the 40s when we started this. Water is not just a scarce resource, but by the time it actually gets to your tap, there's a lot of embedded energy, a lot of chemical, all those things. So if you could get it as pure to where it needs to be, data's going to tell us that. Right now, we kind of, in municipal systems, you kind of dose the water based on worst case scenarios, because you don't know how long it's going to be resident there. All this information will translate into saving the resource, using less chemicals, using less pumped energy, all those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of companies who are in the water space, and you see it here. There's tons of companies. And it's good because I think it's our
people certainly know a lot more about this notion of leak detection and smarter homes and how it all ties together.
It's part of a whole movement of digitalization based on new technologies and things like it's pressure sensors and temperature sensors used to be quite expensive things. Now, because they're mass produced, you can all of a sudden start using them in ways which might have been cost prohibitive not that many years ago. So taking all of this stuff and digitizing it, putting it through smart algorithms and extracting data and changing behaviors it's really exciting.
It is.
And almost every aspect of our industry and all the industries here are impacted in some way.
Good. I want to change gears a little bit because I did read an interview that you gave with the Star Tribune up in Minneapolis, and it talked about labor shortage. But I hear labor shortage all the time from contractors. And this was your own labor shortage as a manufacturer to make your products in least Minnesota. So what's going on? What have you been up to?
The same sorts of things that have impacted skilled trades as career choices for young people now have impacted manufacturing as a realistic life. And manufacturing has seen a little bit of a black eye because not that long ago you joined a manufacturer, you had a job for life, then they had offshoring and cost savings and all those kinds of things. So I think it's not the first choice for people as a career. So I think in the interview I talked really about us being at an interesting pinch point in that labor market. One, we need skilled labor. We need people to run our extruders and work on our factory floor and do all those kinds of things. And on the contractor side, they need similar in order for our products to be installed. So we're kind of playing both sides of that, or we're impacted by both sides of that. On our side, really, productivity improvements have helped offset scarcity of labor a little bit. Automation, continuous improvement programs through good, improved yield and throughput and the things that we speak of. And then we've also looked at changing the nature of the work that's done. It's not that long ago you walked through any factory and it was 95% men. Well, we're missing 50% of the population that way. So we've restructured some of our manufacturing so that jobs don't need to be done by 6'2" males. You don't have to be that strong to do that kind of work. So work, our assistance things in lifting and all those kinds of things, just changing the nature of work has been some of the stuff that we've done. We're a 24/7 plant, which means we have 4 shifts, 12-hour shifts, which alternate. And then so not everybody wants to work, nights. Right. So you have shift premiums and all those kinds of things. So it's really trying to overcome some of those types of challenges. So it's an interesting. It's like a lot of things. It's an interesting time.
So, are you happy with progress, or still
very happy
things
with
need to be
what
done?
we're doing in Minnesota? We've got a great workforce. We opened a new factory in. We're in Apple Valley, but we opened a new factory in Hutchinson, which is about 70 miles away. So not only kind of mitigates risk from having everything under one roof, now we have 2 factories. It also allows us to work with a different labor force in Hutchinson versus Apple Valley. One of the interesting things in the cities, as Minneapolis kind of expands out in the suburbs, you're pushing off the family farms and those sorts of things where one person worked the farm and another person worked a manufacturing job, for the steady income and the benefits. As we push farther out, and then we're kind of running up into the next town, it's becoming more and more competitive. So we just have to be, it's like everything, you have to be creative and think in things in a different way.
Fair enough. All right, well, tell me about this new product.
Are you gonna say it, or shall I?
I'll let you. Well, I'll say the initials. PPRCT. Bill, now what does that mean?
That's polypropylene random crystalline temperature.
Wow.
And that's the extent of everything I know. I'm just kidding. No.
So
one of the things as we have pushed into the commercial markets, around 2012, we were starting to see more revenue come from commercial. We also saw an opportunity to take some of the cyclicality out of our business. And so we pushed in the commercial space. We launched larger diameter PEX sizes. So right now we make a PEX 8 pipe that goes through 4-inch. But when you look at the bill of materials on a commercial job, high rise, etc., we need higher temperatures and pressures, and we need larger diameters. So we're very, very, very convinced that polymer solutions are the best overall life cycle of the building, that sort of thing, for our customers. And it solves another big thing on the contractor labor side, which is productivity. They have to figure out how to be more productive, how to get more. So this product, we've been watching it probably for the last decade or so, the PPR version, watching that market develop. We're hearing some things about that. We know some of the challenges and some of the opportunities. We've watched this company make their initial efforts into the North American market. And we just kind of looked at it and said, Uponor we have very good reach from to customers to all corners of the North American market. We're very well represented. We've got a decent market share. We've got an excellent sales, both our internal sales and our rep sales networks. We have strong design services. So we're allowed to, that's the first enabler and able to get your product into a commercial job. Can I design and apply it? We have a great distributor network. So all those things come together, and you look and say, well, these guys are having a hard time and having a little bit of a flatness in their growth. What if we got behind that and then brought another part to our offering? So it's very, very symbiotic type of a relationship, and it really works well.
The competitor of this product is what traditionally? Is it
I think when traditionally in the residential space, when we looked at PEX, the original nemesis was copper. We were about to replace copper, and then CPVC, and then now the residential market is effectively a PEX market. In the commercial, it's still a lot of space, a lot of space to grow with polymer solutions. And I look at still the coppers and steels are the primary competitors for this. So this has a lot of those advantages, similar advantages: rigid pipe, large diameters, high temperatures and pressures, and those kinds of things. But it also has the advantage of being lightweight, easier to install. So again, you're looking at these things that overall productivity on the job, and then the life cycle of the job.
So to contractors, what do they say about this?
There's been, as I said, we've been watching it for about a decade in the North American market. It's been around 3 or 4 decades in the overall in the European markets, South Europe specifically. And there's mixed reviews, like anything in our business. There's been some great experiences and some not so great experiences. And one of the things with and it's typically not not necessarily, not always the product. It's how it's applied and how it's installed and all those kinds of things. So if you look at what Uponor can bring to that relationship, so we have a great training team,
Right.
and we have great relationships with tool suppliers and all those kinds of things. The magic of this product is to get the fusion connection right,
Okay.
and it'll last its recommended lifetime.
And is there work still to be done on the fusion connection? Because I know you partner with like Milwaukee Tool, for example, with the PEX. Is there some other
There's some
tool maker that
there's
would...
big tool makers in the fusion,
Okay.
both in the high density polyethylene
Yeah.
and the PPRCT markets.
Okay.
And so we will be
Still working on that.
we're working on those relationships, and it's really about do they share the same values as us? Kind of qualifying that. Do they share the same values? Do they have good brand?
Yeah.
Are they the leaders in their
Okay.
technology, similar to what our tool relationship with Milwaukee? They're certainly in the markets they choose to compete. They're one bar none.
Yeah.
I believe that's Uponor in the markets that we compete in, and so any partners, that's kind of the qualification. Is you got to want to push the industry. And that's what market leaders do. We push it to the next level,
Yeah.
doing the right things in order to create a long-term, sustainable, competitive environment. If we can't do that, then it's not a business we want to be in.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Well, one last question, and we have talked some about this already, but what can our readers expect from Uponor in the year ahead or next year?
Oh, there's lots of, I think I've been in my position for about 8 years, leading North American business, and we are always pushing forward into something, whether it was, kind of this partnership with Belkin called FIN, so the digitalization of water and plumbing systems. I think this is another one that really serves more in our commercial contractor market. I think that you'll continue to see Uponor driving forward, and we've talked about the continued digitalization of construction, 2D AutoCAD, those kinds of things becoming 3D, full BIM design and models.
Yeah.
You'll see Uponor, we've announced the evolution of design services into construction services, and what that means is designing beyond our pipe and fittings. So looking at full MEP, HVAC designs for commercial jobs. I think that there's a segment of the contractor network that won't be able to, or will be looking for partners as they go forward in that. And I think if you look at the Uponor brand and what we stand for and what we've brought to the market over time, you'll see us making a splash in that part of the business. So yeah, a lot of exciting things. I think not just pipe and fittings anymore. It's how does this whole thing come together, and partners who are going to help drive productivity, which again I think is the biggest single issue facing our industry.
Because of the labor shortage.
The labor shortage and increasing costs and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you'll see us is this productivity partnership and just continuing to help mutually drive value in each other's businesses.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Productivity partnership. That's a good way to put it.
That might be our new tagline.
I like it. You should use it. Well, thanks a lot, Bill. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. It's good.
And appreciate the time. Thank you.